Let's go over to Ireland and talk to Father Paul Kramer and get his impressions of the election and certainly of these cabinet appointments. We don't know if they're going to be confirmed, but most of them will be. That's the way it works. And find out if the Vatican had any meaningful comments about the election. They put out the usual stuff, I'm sure. Father Kramer, hello. Welcome back. How are you over there? Everything okay?
Yes, everything's well with me, yes.
Very good. All right, so let's hear it. What do you think? How did it come across to you?
I know that Bergoglio is not favorable about Trump. He prefers someone more communist. We can recall that it was the Obama regime that was, to a great extent, responsible for the coup d'etat in the Vatican, and Benedict basically demoted into retirement and replaced with this Argentinian.
Well, poor Benedict, he got locked up basically in solitary, or nearly, for the rest of his life in the Vatican. 9 years.
Yeah, and just when some semblance of order was beginning to reappear in the Church, then the revolution initiated by the Second Vatican Council was consummated by Bergoglio just this last October. Most Catholics do not understand. The revolution is over. It has been completed. Like with the Soviet Union, you had the old social order. You had the war going on. The Bolsheviks were making their war. You didn't have communism during the revolution. It's when the revolution ended, that's when communism was implemented. And the same thing is happening now in the Church. What's happening now, the Vatican has just approved of a paganized, de-Christianized so-called Mass, the Mayan rite, and it has some pagan elements in it already. You can already see where this is leading. This revolution in ecclesiastical affairs came about because you had Obama, Hillary Clinton, those people who were involved in getting rid of Benedict and getting him replaced with someone who's more favorable to their mentality, to their ideology. And that man is Bergoglio. Now that the revolution is over, now the revolutionary agenda is being implemented. Naturally, Bergoglio is not going to be too favorable with Trump because the ones who were largely responsible from the other side of the ocean to get him into power have just been voted out. I see reports to the effect that the Obama period is over in American politics. Well, I hope it's true.
Did you say you have seen reports suggesting that that is the case?
I have seen one, but I unfortunately didn't have the time to read it at the time, so I still need to examine the report. But basically, the claim is already being made that the Obama period is over.
Well, there's been a major shift in Washington. There's no question that the great majority of people involved directly with the Trump planned administration are Zionist. Many of them rabid, hardcore Zionists, like Mike Huckabee, just appointed ambassador to Israel by Trump. That guy is a Christian Zionist, and he'll go over there and he will support the genocide in Gaza and probably West Bank. I still say that Trump, any money he allows to go over there makes him 100% culpable as being a factor in the genocide. It's just wrong. It's evil. That's my take.
Yeah. Bringing all these Zionists into power in the Trump administration, this is the Achilles heel in Trump's agenda to make America great again. This is going to be the undoing of the USA.
You're totally correct. Said it perfectly. Are you seeing it from over there, the amount of Zionism that has been obviously descended on Trump immediately and began to tell him who to appoint for this and who to appoint for that? These are not his own decisions. I don't believe it. Maybe in the end, they'll say, well, what do you think, Don? And he'll know, he'll read the writing on the wall, and he'll say, well, I approve. Go ahead and name that person and make it public. Zionism is going to tear this country down.
The same thing happened with Ronald Reagan. He wasn't the one who made the appointments, and many of the appointments he made were not the kind of people he wanted. Like
that's correct.
Henry Kissinger was not his choice.
Well, go back to 2016. Trump wasn't happy with most of his appointments. At least that's the way it looked. They were terrible appointments. So now we have, without any question, a hardcore ring of uber-Zionists all around Trump, who's a Zionist in his own right. So we have a Zionist-occupied government.
Well, I think that, to use the old vocabulary of the communists, their idea is to create a revolutionary situation. That's their strategy, to create a revolutionary situation. And that's why the powers that be allowed Trump to win the election, because already you see what direction things are going to be going in. When the mainstream media is talking about him being an authoritarian, as if he's going to be a dictator, what does this mean? Well, it means that they're going to create such upheavals that Trump is going to have to act in a decisive manner, and then they're going to really be screaming at him for being a dictator.
That's fair enough. Yeah. So what do your friends say to you? You have a friend here and a friend there. What are they saying to you about what happened in the U.S.? And honestly, it doesn't take a genius to look at this situation and understand that there's a very virulent geopolitical philosophy involved called Zionism that is forcing the United States to get on its knees to the Zionist state of Israel. They want a war with Iran, which could lead to a thermonuclear war, depending upon Putin and how he responds to his already signed agreements with Iran to provide some kind of security for them.
Well, here in Ireland, there is generally more awareness of the Zionist problem in the world than in the United States in particular. The comments I'm hearing are pointing out this problem that exists after the recent election, that the Zionism problem is still there.
It's only becoming more intense all the time. It's painfully obvious who is running the government in Washington.
This is not the way the Republic was designed to be. I had a friend.
No way.
No. An American friend that I used to work with back in the 90s. His name was Morse. He was a great nephew of Samuel Morse. One of his ancestors during the Civil War was present at the Gettysburg Address. So when Lincoln was speaking, Abraham Lincoln, he spoke about the Republican experiment that was brought about by the Founding Fathers, and he pronounced with the inflection and the emphasis in the way I'm going to say it now, that it is to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, with the emphasis on people. Not the way you hear it in school, of the people, for the people, by the people. No, it was of the people, for the people, by the people. That's what a republic is supposed to be. And in order to have a republic, as the late Chief Justice of the Philippine Supreme Court, Roberto Concepcion, wrote in a book of his essays, that for a republic to survive and to thrive, citizens have to have a high educational level. People have to be well educated and have high moral standards. And that's the only way a republic can survive. I think it was...
high moral standards, yeah. Sounds good. Let's run it up the flagpole and see if anybody salutes. I don't know.
I think it was Alex de Tocqueville, French writer, I think, who said, America is great because America is good, but when America ceases to be good, it will cease to be great.
Oh, he nailed it. Amen.
And so if Trump wants America to be great again, you've got to scrap the Zionist agenda, because that's not good.
He's already said in a speech, make Israel great again. And then he said as an addendum, and make America great again too. Miriam Adelson, the widow of the former casino magnate, gave Donald Trump $250 million with his promise that he would deliver the West Bank to her, that he would allow the Jews to do anything they want to take the West Bank. Watch what happened. Father Kramer, everywhere you look now in the Western world, there's crisis.
There are Jews and Jewish scholars and Jewish rabbis who are very much aware of the fact that this Zionism is not authentically Jewish, that it's against the very principles of Judaism. This Zionism is an aberration, even from a more traditional Orthodox Jewish point of view. And I listen to rabbis talk about this. I listen to rabbis give speeches and lectures about this. This is going to be the undoing of Israel itself. And there is an old prophecy about Israel. Around 1975, in the Italian language, I found a pamphlet in Rome with the prophecies of St. Caesarius of Arles. He lived in the first millennium. He presided over the Council of Orange. It was a regional council that was ratified by the Pope afterward. So the doctrine adopted by that council became church doctrine, which was basically canonizing the doctrine of grace of St. Augustine. He was an important figure in his day. He wrote down prophecies going century by century until the end of the world. After the prophecy of the First and Second World War, the very next one is that Israel will commit such a great crime that it merits to be destroyed. I read this in 1975 in a hard copy printed edition in the Italian language. When I went online to search for the original Latin text of the prophecies, I found an internet version of it, except that one line about Israel was deleted. That's removed.
How funny. Okay. I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either, because I remember when David Ben-Gurion gave an interview that appeared in, I believe it was Look magazine. I think it was January 16th, 1962 edition, if my memory is
That's a hell of a
correct.
memory. Wow. All right.
Now, I remember reading the interview, and I found references to it in articles. I found a photocopy edition of it. I wanted to get my hands on the hard copy. I went to a public library, and they had all the back copies going back decades. And 1962, the one issue of that magazine that was missing was that one.
When I was at the university studying World War II history and so forth, I was in my early 20s. I remember learning that Hitler was Man of the Year on the cover of Time magazine. I believe it was 38, maybe 38. And in the entire library, all the Time magazine archives, to the best of my ability, were all there, except this one copy. I think they went around to all the public libraries that had stockpiles of old Time magazines and took them all. To this day, I've never seen one for sale yet, that particular issue. So I'm not surprised what you tell me. They have an easy time of sending agents to public libraries to remove certain offensive materials.
Well, in that Ben-Gurion interview, and I quoted it in my books, in that Ben-Gurion interview, the then head of state of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, was explaining that there's going to be a one-world government, a one-world republic. He said that the Jews are going to be ruling, that it's going to be a Jewish-controlled global state. He said
That's
it.
right.
This was his own words.
I believe you. All the facts, all the pointers are there. That's where it's going.
He said the Israelites are going to pronounce judgment on the nations.
The world, right. Don't forget that in Ukraine, I've mentioned many times, there are a group of very powerful Jewish oligarchs, just as there are in Russia today. And they wield an awful lot of power and influence in both countries. And it is said that that is one reason why Zelensky is still alive, because the Russian oligarchs told Putin, don't kill him.
When I was in Moscow, this is 21 years ago, it was pointed out to me by a Muscovite, near to Dzerzhinsky Square, where you had the Lubyanka. And up on the hill behind the Lubyanka, there was the synagogue. And then you could also see from there two very high-rise apartment buildings. And it was pointed out to me that it is in those two high-rises, the oligarchs have their luxury apartments in Moscow. They regularly come to Moscow. They always have business to do with the government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In Russia or abroad. They would come to stay in those high-rise apartments, those luxury apartments that were theirs. And it was explained to me, they are all Jews.
I'm not surprised in the least. Yeah.
These are all Russian billionaire oligarchs, and they are all Jews.
That's my understanding of it. I don't know that there's going to be a satisfactory outcome to this Zionist crisis. I think America will go the way that they want it to go. We have in this country about 45 million Christian Zionists who believe fully in the myth of the chosen and all the rest of it that goes along with it. Only 6 million in this country. Look at the control. Only 13 million in the whole world. What they pulled off is astonishing. That little tiny group of people has literally wrested control of much of the entire world.
The blind Christian Zionists are going to have their eyes open when it's too late. Their eyes will be opened when Operation Pogo is succeeded by Operation Zephyr.
Tell me about Zephyr. I've heard of it. Zephyre on the end, maybe.
Yeah, PHR. Anyways, when the information gathering phase is succeeded by the rounding up and internment, that's Operation Zephyr.
No argument here.
The European Union has become increasingly more what Gorbachev called the new European Soviet. So
the new European Soviet here, or Tel Aviv West in Washington, D.C.
So as much as the Zionist press will deny and say it's a lie, conspiracy theory, and it's a right-wing lie, that David Ben-Gurion ever said that, and that's why they made sure that those magazines were removed from the public libraries, where that interview was hard evidence, documentary proof that, yes, he did indeed say those things. Let's look at how that agenda has been implemented since 1962, how many decades have passed, and we can see it's turning into a reality. The global Zionist state is becoming a reality.
If Bergoglio doesn't like Trump, and I understand why he wouldn't, what is the disposition of the Vatican going to be? What are you expecting in the next 6 months? A public stance? What do you think?
Bergoglio, we know from his own past history, he throws his occasional barbs against people like Trump. I think he will continue to do the same, but I don't think we're going to see too much. He's not going to become really hyper in his attacks on Trump, because he's got his own coup d'etat and revolution have taken place. Now his main concern is to implement the agenda of his revolution, which is now complete. Catholics have no idea, most of them, very few.
What's coming?
Yes, they have no idea that this organization in the Vatican is not the Catholic Church. It is a new and different church. It is something that has been created by Bergoglio and his gang. They call it the Synodal Church. They have a reformed version of the papacy. It's not the Catholic papacy that we have in Rome anymore. The papacy in Rome is a modified, reformed kind of papacy that is not of the apostolic institution. Bergoglio is not what Catholics would call the successor of St. Peter, because the successor of St. Peter has authority. He has a monarchical authority over the whole church. And it's called the primacy, which is a full and supreme jurisdiction. And that's an article of faith in the Catholic Church. It is a full and supreme jurisdiction. It consists of a total fullness of supreme power. Whereas the Bergoglian papacy, the modified primacy, which is a different kind of primacy, is a limited primacy. Whereas now it has been synodally determined and ratified, rubber-stamped by Bergoglio, that the Pope can only exercise his primacy synodally, which means he has to heed the advice, recommendations, etc., that are coming from the groups and bodies, what I call the Soviets, the councils and synods and conferences, committees. They have to be listened to, and their recommendations have to be carried out according to the principles of synodality. That's what, at the Second Vatican Council, they were calling collegiality. And there was an explanatory note that was put in the documentation of the Council, that a disclaimer against that idea of collegiality, which has now become radicalized in the synodality of Bergoglio and his regime. So they have created a new counterfeit church by founding it on a counterfeit papacy, which is not the papacy of the Catholic Church. It is essentially a different kind of papacy, the kind of a papacy which cannot exist in the Catholic Church. People think that these are changes taking place in the Catholic Church. They are not.
Right.
You have an unchangeable apostolic divine constitution of the Church which cannot be changed. And if someone attempts to change it, all they can do is effectively and actually create a different church. And Bergoglio did admit this a few years ago, that his synodal church will be a different church.
Who's going to blow this thing wide open with a book or something? Can you get together with 4 or 5 others of your stature and hold a news conference or something to do something to put this out in front of 1.3 billion Catholics? There's a group now who is calling out the fraud in the Vatican.
There is a growing awareness, more and more bishops, more and more priests, and many informed lay people who are becoming aware of this, and they are speaking out. I see reports every day, practically, of individual bishops giving warnings about
right. Good.
Bergoglio is going to destroy the Catholic Church.
Good. What about my idea of getting half a dozen of you together, Archbishop Vigano, etc.? You all could pick your own people, but hold an international news conference and paint this picture of what is going on here for the masses. I think this needs to be stated formally.
I think something like that is going to be happening soon. Now that the synod is complete, the working groups, the study groups, or whatever they call them, these committees or what they called in the French Revolution, they called them the directories. These directories, these committees, are drawing up documents, recommendations that are going to be rubber-stamped and implemented by the Bergoglian Vatican. They're going to be so radical, it will not be the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church will not be recognizable in this new synodal church. They've already started. I just read today they have just approved of a paganized ritual, which is called the Mayan rite of Mass.
They're actually using the term Mayan on this. That's very interesting. They're not holding anything back. Huh.
And there are pagan elements in this so-called liturgy. That's the blueprint for the whole world. And there's this pagan Mother Earth worship already built into this Mayan rite. You're going to see a total reverting to ancient paganism in its various cultural and national forms all over the world. Wherever there has been a Catholic hierarchy established, that Catholic hierarchy has been uprooted and replaced, or is being uprooted and replaced with Bergoglian neo-pagan synodalists. And they are now replacing the Catholic Church with their new paganized counterfeit church. That's what's happening. There are enough bishops in the world who are still Catholic, who see what's happening. People will organize. Many of these, especially bishops, do have organizational talents. And they know how to get like-minded people who want to defend the true Christian faith from this pagan onslaught. And that's what it is. And Catholics have to understand that Bergoglio's agenda is a pagan onslaught against Christianity as such. They have to stop calling him the Holy Father. He is the enemy of the papacy. He's an enemy of the Church.
I'm just thinking about this and hoping that something will come to pass. And if you need my help for anything, Father Kramer, I'm here to assist in any way I can. I want to do this. I want to help if I can. So keep that in mind. Okay, thank you, Father Kramer. We'll talk to you next time. Be careful out there and try and do a little preparation. I'm telling you, you're going to need it.